Let's see what we can get done today. It's gotten cold here in Austin. Today, my phone says it's like 37 degrees outside. That's crazy for here. It was like 90 last week. So let's check out this fuel tank. See if it's been here for a couple days with that vinegar. Let's see what's going on. Vinegar in there. Seems to be covering everything up still. That is good. My little key here. Let's see. See if we're really lucky. This will actually do something. Something approaching something would be great. Yeah, no. No, it won't. Not sure what to do with this thing. It is so... I mean, I'm okay with like cleaning out the inside, like that will happen, but this lock mechanism, what the F? Well, how do I get that to work? It's like this it's the linchpin of everything. Everything. Well, agitation is one way to speed up a chemical reaction, right? What about these little guys? I've got some little feeler gauges. Maybe these will fit down inside that lock and allow me to do something, to manipulate something, get that rust out of there. It's probably not long enough. These feeler gauges are probably not long enough, but fuck, man. Something's got to happen here. Something has to happen. Yeah, these are not long enough, dude. All right, I guess I'm gonna start doing spark plugs. We're gonna tighten the spark plugs down just so debris and whatnot does not get into our engine now that we've got it actually close to being like sealed up. We're getting there, right? I need a longer extension for sure. All right, so the torque value on these spark plugs is 9 foot-pounds. That one's already there. All right. Yeah, it's not, 9 foot-pounds is nothing. All right, so we can feel safe about spark plugs now. And there's a lot of other stuff to do in this engine, so let's move on. We've got the clutch to do inside here still. We've got this similar stuff on the other side, all that cover, everything needs to be redone and the new gasket put on. We got oil pan on the bottom needs to go on, and we need to put oil in this thing. We've also got the coolant lines to run, which is kind of where I was headed today. What do I want to do here? All right, so I want to work on this side of the engine. That's what I've decided. I've got a bunch of stuff to clean up over here still, and we haven't even taken the cap off the oil, off the alternator yet. Like in theory, there's no way that sticks could have gotten into the alternator compartment here, but what do I know, right? So I definitely need to do that. And then, but yeah, there's a bunch of dirt and stuff in here. Let's clean this up. Got some degreaser over here happening. There's like gasket stuff I need to, there's a lot to do right here. I gotta get my toothbrush. Some gasket remover, got that on there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and try and scrape some of these big chunks of gasket off of here with my little plastic scraper, which is so neat, man. This thing works nice without fucking stuff up, you know? All right, let's bust off this cap or this cover and deal with this clutch, man. Get this thing done. Let's just come right off. There we go. All right, let's get this clutch back together. All right, so this clutch is supposed to be, this clutch basket here is supposed to be tightened, the bolt to 94 foot-pounds. And this should be interesting because it was a pain to get off of here where it was like super tight. So let's see. Yeah. There's a leverage problem here. I need more leverage on this guy here than I have. Here, if we can extend things. Oh, yes. All right, now we're in business here. All right, it's there. Maybe I already did that. It's been a while since I had this thing. All right, got all my little clutch discs here. I've got one new clutch disc because I had one that was out of spec, which is kind of weird. There's just one. Everything else is totally fine. But I need to coat these with fresh oil and reinstall them, basically. See, here is the burnt out one. Look at that. It is completely, I mean, it's like, it's all black, dark in color, like it got hot. Whereas if you can compare it to one of the other ones, look at that. What happened there? And this is like in the center of the pack. So I don't know. I don't know if that's at all common or not, but I found it weird that it was just one. So I'm gonna swap that out for the new one, which is this guy right here. Look at that beautiful little clutch disc. I'm always kind of fascinated by how little material is on there. This is brand new. Look at how little material is on it. And like also how durable these are. Like everything else in here is like, it looks exactly like this, same spec width, like width and everything. It's fascinating. Like it takes quite a bit in my experience to wear out a clutch. Apparently they last a long time. All right, stick these in here. Now, according to my service manual, there's supposed to be like a friction spring and like a friction disc and a friction spring or whatever on here, like which are basically they're this diameter. They go in here first in the back, but I think that was like on earlier models or something, because they don't have that anymore on this model. That does not have that. Like when you go to order parts and stuff for it, that is not an option for this one. I'm not exactly sure what year they stopped doing that. By 2000 apparently they stopped. And like when I took this off, when I took it apart, not that that means anything because who knows who was in here last and what they did, but it was not like that when I took it out. All right, friction discs are all in there. Now, time for this guy to go on. All right, we're also supposed to put some lube on this guy, some silicone lube, specifically it says, which is what this stuff is. So there's some silicone lube. Then this guy goes on over this guy. Got like little hairs everywhere. Like that. And then this guy goes on. There we go. And now we gotta put springs. Where are my springs? These guys. Little springs all go on here. Little bolts. Trying to get these guys started. Just thread it in there a little bit. Split together, man. It's empty. Oh, it's a big moment, man. Motorcycles come together. And these guys get torqued to 9 foot-pounds. It's a common theme, 9 foot-pounds. Alright, and then this is probably the right size socket because there's a common theme. I like motorcycles. They are fun to work on. They're just, they're small, which I really like, and they're simple, which I also like. It's just sort of like analog technology. It's very mechanical. You just bolt things together and it's good. Although I do have to say I don't like carburetors, which are very analog technology, but they suck, man. They are just annoying to work on. They clog up all the time. I don't like them. And so this bike really may be my perfect bike in terms of it's in the time frame in which there's not
like a lot of computer stuff on here, but we do have fuel injection. Like the fuel injection is the only part that has any computerized aspect at all to this bike. And that may be the sweet spot, you know, for me. Because I don't need rider aids, I don't want ABS and things like that on here. It may be good for me, but I don't want it. I want it to be simple to work on. I want it to be simple to think about to understand what's going on the bike. Just want to be like, you know, it's easy for me to diagnose stuff. I don't have to get a computer out to like read off codes and stuff to me. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to just be able to, like, if it breaks down on the side of the road, like, I want to be able to figure it out myself. I don't want to have to get anything, I don't want to have a specialized tool, you know, to figure it out. Like, I think that's kind of the romantic part of like why people have these old Harleys and stuff. It's the simple aspect of it. It's the idea that those things were designed. It was a time in which they were designed, machines like that were designed for people to work on themselves, you know? I think that's what it is. Like the machines now, like, yeah, like they're convenient. They're really convenient, but like once they start breaking down, once they get old enough that those things start breaking down, like no one's gonna want them anymore. And it may break. Can you imagine a motorcycle that like went into limp mode like cars do nowadays? All right, 9 foot-pounds. Here we go. Crisscross pattern, done. Clutch is done. I hope to never have to go back in that. But yeah, I think there's a decent case for argument for cars that, for vehicles in general that are, well, cheap and simple. Mainly cheap, I think that's why. But if you look at like the Volkswagen Beetle, the original one, and like the Citroen, whatever the name of that was, the D9 or something like that, the Fiat 500, the original one, basically all these like post-World War cars that were made specifically very cheaply. It made them very accessible to the masses, you know, and they sold like crazy. They also were made so that you could fix them and whatnot all on your own, like, you know. I would like to think that that's part of it, of why they were very popular, is because they were so accessible in most every way. You could afford to buy them and you could afford to fix them. I think there's a good argument for that stuff, that those things were popular not just because they were cheap to acquire, but you could also maintain them yourself. And I think that that's a key thing. I don't understand why the trend in manufacturing or in products is to make them more technical, more complicated. It's kind of bad for the environment in a sense because it makes them less fixable. They don't last as long. Like my Fiat, I have a new Fiat 500, right? And that thing is so unrepairable. Because here's the scenario with that thing. It, like mine, shouldn't exist. It should be in the scrapyard, but it exists because I'm stubborn, right? That's the only reason. Like, economically, it made no sense to fix that thing. It had the labor cost, like the car itself, like the value of it on the used market is a few $1,000s, but the labor it would have cost to put a new engine in that probably would have totaled the car out, and it would be in the scrapyard if I was a reasonable person. But because I'm not, and I realize, you know, that I can fix it myself, it makes sense for me. I can actually save money. I can get a cheap car out of it, you know, that works great, but it actually has low miles. It doesn't even have 100,000 miles yet. It's crazy. And it would be in the scrapyard because of the economics of it. So, and like even just to change the oil pan, put a new oil pan gasket on that, I bet you could total one of those cars just for that, because you have to take the engine out and separate it from the transmission in order to put in order to seal the oil pan, because the oil pan is connected to the engine via some bolts that are inside the transmission side. You have to they're basically inside the sort of like the clutch or flywheel area where you can't access that without separating the engine from the transmission. So it's kind of crazy how that was designed, where it is very wasteful, very environmentally unfriendly, because cars are going to end up in the junkyard ahead of their time, basically, before they should. because like a car that doesn't even have 100,000 miles on it, like you get a lot of life left in that car. But if it's leaking oil all over the place, people aren't going to want to drive that around. The smell of burning oil all the time. And I mean, and that's bad for the environment in its own way too. Like, it's crazy. This is a serious, this old gasket on here is like on here good. This is going to take me a while just to get this thing cleaned off. I realize a lot of people like tech, you know, and that is cool and fun in its own way. And I do kind of think that it's cool to have like an ideal thing for like a motorcycle, in my opinion, or even like a car would just be to have tech that interfaces with your car via your phone or something, where it's not built into the vehicle itself. I can see that being pretty useful and actually being like durable in terms of like over time, like it doesn't really get outdated. With cars and stuff, how they try and integrate GPS and all that sort of stuff into the car, I feel like it's kind of a waste of time and money and makes the car more expensive than it needs to be. Your phone can do that, you know? Just have a way to integrate the phone into the car, then you always have the most current technology. That makes way more sense to me. But I do realize there's a market. Some people, I mean, that's what they love about a car or a bike, is that it has the latest and coolest technology for bikes on it. And that's why you see so many like reviews of these vehicles that focus entirely on the buttons. Like, I think there's whole YouTube channels of dudes that just look at the tech on like cars, which is crazy to me. And clearly people are interested in that, and that's like a big selling point. But I think for me, especially for a motorcycle, I kind of get how that happens in the car market, where the car market is for the masses and stuff. But motorcycles there's a romanticism with a motorcycle that, you know, harkens back to an older time when things were simpler. And for me, and to me, a lot of that would be the analog technology aspect of it. Just make it simple, reliable, cheap, you know, and people will buy the crap out of it. That's what I'm thinking. This gasket, it like has become part of the case, man. It is fused on there. But yeah, I'm probably in the minority. Like, I'm usually in the minority on a lot of things. I'm not like other people, man. And so I just don't understand the tech aspect, especially on a motorcycle. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's the opposite of what a motorcycle should be about. Currently, they're trying to expand the market, right? Get more people to ride motorcycles. There's less people riding motorcycles than ever before, or something like that. And so they're trying to expand the market, and one of the ways they do that is by making the motorcycles seem a lot more approachable. Hence, one of the reasons, I mean, and there's an argument for that because the Grom has done so well, right? That's like one of the best-selling motorcycles here. It's because it's so unintimidating. Anybody can ride that thing. And so there's that argument for sure, and maybe they're right, you know? But they put this tech on these motorcycles in order to make them easier to manage, where they have all the modes where you can turn it down. I can put it in the rain mode or whatever, beginner mode, whatever they have, so that the bike is less likely to kill you. Less likely to wheelie, all that sort of stuff, if you don't know what you're doing. And I can see the argument for why that, in theory, should make people that are new to motorcycles more likely to buy a motorcycle. You know, because a motorcycle there's one aspect of the motorcycle that is less dangerous. And if you look at the statistics of like motorcycles, it's kind of fascinating. Like, most motorcyclists are like 40 plus years old. There's not as many 20-year-olds riding around as you would think. Like, it's almost like motorcycles in terms of demographics are like farming. You know, it's all old dudes, old white dudes, by the way, that are riding motorcycles. The kids aren't into it. They don't like them. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not on motorcycles, man. On this gasket, I realize I'm using like a metal razor, which is not ideal, but I'm trying. It was so like the whole entire gasket was stuck on here. I'm trying to like shave off the majority of it so that I can get in here with this stuff and soak off the rest of it, and it will have less of this to like soak into. That's my logic. So yeah, like the Yamaha Tenere 700. is a modern bike that is probably the best example of what I'm talking about, where really well designed, the fundamentals of it, the mechanics, the things that are really important in a bike, like the suspension and the engine are really well done on that bike. The speedo and all that stuff, the computer stuff is very basic. It doesn't have any extra features on it. The technology is actually sort of behind the times, but that bike sells really well, partly because it is great value for the money. If you're primarily wanting to buy a bike to go off-road in and be able to go off-road and to be able to take the highway to get to your off-road location, like if that's really what you're into, like that bike is fantastic for that. It's a great value for that because they didn't spend a whole bunch of money doing all this extra tech stuff, which is expensive. Developing tech stuff is more expensive, programming and product design and all that sort of stuff. So if you can make a product that doesn't have all that stuff, I feel like it's a great value to the consumer, and they're more likely to sell a bunch of them. Like Tenerés are hard to come by because they're so in demand. All right, so like one whole day is basically spent doing gaskets. That's all I got done today. We played with the gas tank a little bit. I've just been peeling little gaskets off of everything here. This guy, our side cover for the clutch. We did get the clutch in. That was our most significant accomplishment today. So tomorrow, let's see what we can get done.